Okay. All righty. Call the meeting to order. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes
Yes.
that they sent out?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes, even though I was not at the last meeting. I read through them and they look good.
Like I say, it was just me. So,
Yeah.
And Dave. So, I will second. I guess we will approve them, correct? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do you have any questions on those minutes as far as like what we discussed and stuff?
No, I think we're gonna be talking about a lot of it right
Okay.
now,
Yeah,
so.
okay, we'll just hit it as we go along then, because it's just you and me today. Establish a process for marijuana businesses, ordinance number 972. That will be, that was on the agenda, correct, for our first reading, honestly?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was, I put it there that way. So what we had added, just so you know, is, and Dennison made it sound better, or put his legalese on it, I guess, was that if, the zoning changes, with the master, the
Mhm.
plan, if someone's no longer in a designated spot, they can choose to move if they want to. They don't have to because they're grandfathered in without having, it'll be a closed application, because we don't want to,
Yeah.
put up roadblocks to them moving when they're in a
We
spot
want
that,
to disincentivize them from
Right.
moving. That was a
Didn't know if that was-
I think was a really good call.
yeah.
Yep, I
So
like that.
I think that was the only change we put in there, and he didn't get a chance to review it before the meeting, so we just, moved it. We didn't have a public hearing.
Yep.
So that'll be up for tonight. Any more questions on that?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
Okay. And then next,
Who's gonna make the motion on that tonight?
I can make the motion. Are you gonna have the public hearing before we move it, or? How does that
I
work?
think what we'll do is we will no, I'll wait until there's a motion. And
Okay.
so make sure you include public hearing and first reading. We'll do some discussion at the table so that people understand what's there. You'll get a chance to explain what's
Okay.
there, why it's there.
Okay.
And then we'll go to public hearing from there. I have done my part to have a conversation with both of the potential council members, as well as relate the expectation that they come ready to act on those first
So it's,
6 items.
just to kind of clarify on that, if we do approve a new council, or when we approve a new council member, they'll be starting?
Yeah, if we do, so what we'll do, the first thing we'll do is we'll do a council vacancy, if there's a member who gets, and this is, and this we can talk about it, so what I'll do is I'll explain the process, which is basically we'll open the nominations.
Okay.
Actually, what we'll do is, before we do the nominations, each of the candidates will get a chance to introduce themselves. I'll do it in the order that they were received, so Lee will go first. And then what will happen is we will, and those won't be timed, but I've advised both of them that I don't think going along is advantageous. At that point, what we'll do is we will open nominations.
Okay.
And at some point, somebody will move to close nominations. Or if there's a pause and there's nothing there, I'll say I'll entertain a motion to close nominations. And then we will vote on the nominations in the order that they were nominated.
Okay.
Assuming somebody gets 4 votes or more, and remember, there's no way I vote on this because I break three ties only.
Yep.
Which is impossible with 5 people.
Yep.
And so, assuming that there's a member who gets 4 votes, then what we'll do is we'll, stop. We have prepared, each of them have prepared their version of they've made their selections on the oath choices that they have to make. And, Lonnie has the ability to swear them in, so she'll swear them in, and then they will be seated, and then they will respond for the next 5 after that.
Okay.
If for some reason we don't get 4 votes, then we can consider going through it again, having a short recess, or we can reopen it up, so.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, Chelsea,
Did I answer your question
Yeah.
properly?
Yes.
Understand your question property and answer it to your desires.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll go through that. Actually, do you want to talk about the marijuana thing tonight?
Yeah, I can present the marijuana ordinance tonight.
Okay. I can move it, and then Chelsea
Yeah,
can,
we'll
I'll move it, and Chelsea can
We'll have a
discuss.
motion to open the conversation,
And
then
then-
we'll discuss it,
Okay.
and then we'll go to public hearing and then bring it back to the table for a vote.
Okay. And then, notify Carbon County, resolution number 3691, notify Carbon County to conduct 2025 general election by mail ballot.
I think we got mixed up a little bit, but okay.
Did I do
You
the wrong
skipped
one?
one.
Oh, did I? I'm
Yep.
sorry.
That's okay.
We did?
Did you-
Resolution to create a ballot language outline commercial marijuana, and then notifying county to conduct the 2025 mail-in ballot.
are you looking at the one we printed? Because we reordered, so,
Oh, okay. So we ordered what was given. Got it. Okay, never mind.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so what I do,
That's fine.
when I do the order,
It's
I
fine.
put the stuff that's up for action first.
Okay.
That's
and then-
fine.
And then the stuff that's below the fold next, and then the other stuff that's there, so.
up on your agenda? No,
No.
he just reordered it, and Chelsea didn't have the most up-to-date one.
Yep, I apologize.
It's like, wait, you.
Again, kind of working on
Yes, so,
minimal
Okay.
cylinders right now. So, all right, notifying Carbon County to conduct a general election by mail.
yes, okay. And I can move that, and, pretty basic, you know what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
That's action tonight, so Jody, and then, resolution to create a separate fund for the EDA grant. There we go again, Chelsea, if you wanna,
I would prefer not to. I'm,
okay,
Yep,
okay, I will.
okay,
I'll move it and discuss it.
yep, I'm just
Nope, that's okay.
a little out of speed, so.
Nope, that's okay, just whatever you're comfortable with. I just don't wanna hog it all up and have it be the Jody show tonight.
I don't mind it being the Jody show. You do a great job.
Okay, next, resolution to terminate the interlocal agreement for the administration of the Red Lodge Roberts Ambulance District. I can talk about that as well. We all know why it's happening, so,
You say you don't know?
we all know
Oh.
why
Yep.
that's
I would say,
happening.
if you don't know, let's remedy that.
No,
And you
no,
don't want
I
to
voted in
do
that election, I know why they're having to do this, so. And then resolution, this is one where we want to probably have a little discussion on. It's discussion tonight, but we need to also discuss it here.
Okay.
Resolution to create ballot language outlining, commercial marijuana cultivation and possible manufacturing within the city limits.
Yep.
Now, the commercial, cultivation, we all understand. The only reason why, I thought we had talked about manufacturing is because, when they make the tinctures,
Mm-hmm,
they use butane,
mm-hmm,
and it's highly explosive,
mm-hmm.
and, they've had labs blow up. And so that was the only reason why I was thinking that we were going to include that in that,
Yeah,
ballot.
no, that tracks to me.
Okay, because everybody doesn't remember us talking about that.
Yeah,
And-
the discussion
and-
that I remembered and that James remembered was just about the grow. My question is this, and there's a little bit of a, so we've authorized all of those by, the voters authorized all of those when they passed the vote.
Yep.
Do we muddy it by including more than one? Or do we say, and is the second one necessary? Do we already have ordinances that say you can't have explosives?
I don't know.
In
That's-
town, or
that's why we
would
need
you
to-
find what our, because if that's not allowed, or that has already certain things that are someplace, if it's already ruled out someplace else, I think we don't include it here. If
But-
it's not ruled out someplace.
But oxygen, okay, so certain things are naturally explosive, like oxygen tanks. You smoke around an oxygen tank when you know, I mean, that can blow up.
Yeah, there's propane, there's all
So
sorts
those
of things
things,
here in the
so-
area that
so
are.
I-
To your point, we have propane that's an explosive, so.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, there's plenty of places that have potential hazards. I am less concerned about the manufacturing within city limits. More so, I think cultivation is where the big.
Right,
barn is.
because it's absolute, you smell it.
Yeah. And they're
but
just so
will-
highly regulated in terms of manufacturing that.
So because there's also, do we have it outlawed so that you can't manufacture it in your home? 'cause that's where the issue was, like, up in Missoula, college kids were manufacturing it in their dorm rooms and,
Well, again, I
or
think
their
that would
apartments, and
be,
it was blowing up, you know, that type of thing.
that wouldn't, I don't think it pertain to commercial marijuana.
No, no, but I'm
If
asking.
people are trying to do that, they're gonna do that whether it's allowed within
Right.
the city or
If-
not,
But-
like,
So we
that's like
already
having a meth
talked
lab.
about cultivation,
Right,
that there was, that we wanted to make sure that the language was clear enough that people realized we were talking about commercial grow
Commercial, right.
observations. As I'm listening to you talking about manufacturing, you're wanting to prevent college students from creating it in their home.
Well,
I
it's
think you
just-
risk, I think you make it less likely to pass, because anytime you start
Okay.
getting close
Well,
to
I'm
personal
asking,
liberties.
no, what I'm asking, I'm not saying that, I'm asking, do we have an ordinance on the, you know, I mean, you can't make, well, meth is illegal anyway, but people were
Right.
blowing up their trailer houses making meth, you know, that type of thing. I guess, and I'm totally open here, how do we want to address
I don't think we
this?
need to address it.
Okay, so do we, on the manufacturing side commercially, is there in our growth policy and our zoning, will they be able to find a place to allow it? Because that's kind of been the thing,
Is that you have to have it
you
somewhere.
have to have a place for it to be.
And my main driver, as I look at it, is to make
Sorry,
sure
you're
that outlawing the growing has the highest likelihood of passing the public vote.
And I don't think that's necessarily what we should be addressing, the likelihood of it passing. I think we should be addressing that it does need to have a place. I think that zoning could have a location for it, and it would be extremely fine locations. Like, again, it'd be finite, that's the
Where the
word.
gas plant and the propane plant already are,
Right.
sort of that sort of a thing.
Yeah, or like, again, up at the airport in one of the hangars, like, again, manufacturing.
Excuse me?
So,
And in fairness, to your point, that can be addressed by zoning rather than
Exactly.
saying it's not allowed at all.
well,
And
and
that's-
the thing was, is like, part of the cultivation is they didn't really want to zone for it.
Right.
I mean, that's where
And
part
that's,
of this is
and that's
coming
it, is
from.
we don't necessarily want cultivation here in town.
Okay.
I feel less concerned about manufacturing,
Okay.
where again, it's a very contained environment, it's very strictly regulated, and they don't have the same nuisance that you would
Okay.
with cultivation.
Well, and it is a huge risk to, our public safety people, our firefighters and stuff like that, if they do have an issue with it. So I think part of it has to be conversations, though, with our fire department on handling, how do they handle butane fires versus
I think we need to
propane
have a
fires.
better understanding of what the manufacturing actually looks like and how it's regulated.
And I think that's almost better addressed in zoning, so if you
Okay.
live out there, it's okay, but if you, and there may not be any residential overlaps of that.
Well, I think it's definitely more of an industrial type zoning
Yes, it
for
is.
it. It's,
Yep.
and I don't know that it's not a commercial zoning, it's more industrial
Light
type.
industrial, heavy industrial.
Yeah, yeah. So-
I have a friend who does manufacturing, I can reach out to him.
Okay,
And just see like, okay, in terms of, this is something that we're looking at for our community, what are your thoughts? And just get a little bit better
Right.
understanding.
and are there other ways of manufacturing without using butane that's
Yeah, no,
non-explosive?
there-
Because then we could pass an ordinance that says, that limits how they manufacture. You still allow the manufacturing, but you don't allow
And there
the
absolutely
butane,
is.
the BHO,
Yeah.
you know?
So I'll talk to him a little bit
Okay.
about that whole process.
And then we
Yeah.
don't have to put it to the voters, we just put some guardrails on it so that
Yeah.
it's not dangerous to our firefighters if something happens, or,
Right.
you know, it's an inherently a dangerous occupation anyway, but, you necessarily, are they trained for things like that here?
Yeah, I
So-
think that if you wanna have that conversation with the fire department, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
But I just think that we don't understand what that manufacturing process looks like enough to make a smart judgment on it.
mhm.
So, or to try and pass something through that might be completely
Okay.
unnecessary. So I think that yes, oh, sorry, I'm not,
That's okay, we're open here. I know. Yes,
I'm not familiar with the process myself as well, but I think that where this issue came from, or this ballot initiative came from, was the effect that growing has on that section of the community
I don't think
from
we have.
byproduct, which
Yeah.
odor.
Yes.
Manufacturing and concentrating, I have a hard time thinking that there isn't any odor involved, but I don't know.
And again, so
It's more
I've-
about protecting the community quality of life
yep,
Right.
and adjacent property values,
Right,
as the letter that's in your packet. You know, the one adjacent property that's had a significant impact from
right.
the dispensary, whether that's real or perceived, I think that's kind of where this ordinance, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the ordinance was, or this ballot initiative was created to protect the overall quality of life within the community
right.
versus even safety to a certain extent.
Right, and it was also the fact that when everyone voted for marijuana to be legal, I think it was more that they didn't care if people imbibed. But they didn't necessarily know that they were voting for all of these industries to come into the city
They
limits.
were voting to have it allowed within the city.
To not
Right.
get a criminal record if you got,
Right.
or if you.
And so by putting it back on the ballot individually, like cultivation, commercial cultivation or commercial manufacturing, you're actually giving the citizens the right to decide what they want within their city limits.
But communication, as the mayor said, communication
Right.
is the key for people understanding what they're voting for.
Yeah.
Right,
So your ballot
absolutely.
language needs to be very clear as to,
And we
why.
absolutely, we could have put it on the ballot to yay or nay to allow, retail sales of it. But, you know, we chose to, the council back then chose to allow it. You know, and now we're finally gonna zone for it, through the planning board instead of council. So, I mean, other places have actually put all of this on the ballot after it was passed for individual municipalities to decide if they want it. I mean, Billings doesn't allow it inside their city limits as far as recreational marijuana goes.
Don't they have a bunch that got established before they?
They're medical.
Yep.
Or do they have recreational in the city limits?
I don't know if it was just a.
They've always had, they had
Yeah.
medical, but I don't know. So, anyway, I'm just saying, to me, it's more about, I have a problem with just putting everything, allowing everything in the city limits when really I don't feel that that's what the citizens were voting for or knew they were voting for. And there's certain ones that absolutely create more of a, you know, that people don't like, I guess, you know, the commercial cultivation and, you know, and if there is a real hazard with, BHO, which there is, you know, the butane, manufacturing of it, you know, then I do feel we have, that we need to explore that, to find out what that is before we just allow someone to come in and set up a manufacturing plant using that means. And if you talk to your friend and find out if there's other, you know, what those other means are, and
Or
do they
just-
even use
just
the
a-
butane anymore?
I was
'Cause
gonna
they
say-
use it to make the tinctures, you know, the.
Yeah, no, and again, just more so, I just want to clarify with him what that process looks like, because I've been to because he does the full spectrum.
Yeah.
And he's been in the business for many, many years, back when it was just medicinal, and has several dispensaries through Helena, and as well as a cultivation site, a lab, all of the pieces. So, and it is a pretty, like, again, they have very educated chemists that are doing these processes.
Right, not college kids in their, you know,
Exactly,
dorm
and
rooms trying
again,
to make it,
college
so.
kids in their dorm rooms, that's not something that
No,
we
I'm just,
can-
what it has done though is it brought to, you know, on everybody's, you know, it brought it out in the open.
Right.
That this is dangerous, you know, when it's
Yeah.
not done in the right
You
way.
know,
You know, it's very,
So is cooking turkeys, but like,
yes.
I have a question, maybe the attorney could speak to it. What does combined use marijuana license include?
That's an interesting piece. So the statute, lists a whole bunch of different categories.
Yeah,
Combined use,
but that is one of the categories.
that is one of the categories. The combined use is literally just a couple of the categories put together. So it's kind of a,
If we outlaw cultivation, but don't eliminate combined use marijuana, have we still met our objective?
yes.
Yeah.
Combined use is a different type of license, because you can get a license with the state for growing, for manufacturing, or you can get a license from the state for both.
Pick any two sort of a thing.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
combo play. So my question to council then is, recalling the conversation we had before, as you look at the ballot language that's included in the packet, for continuing to allow a cultivator marijuana business or grow facility the ability to operate, does that mean, you guys wanted to make sure that that it was very clear and evident that it was, we're
Commercial,
talking about commercial?
yeah.
Yep.
Does that do that, and/or is there the possibility of adding the word commercial in front of that, or does that?
I like that.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah,
So if we just say, for continue to allow a commercial cultivator of marijuana license, does that not dilute this at all?
No, that'd actually be fantastic, because
Because to me, that would make it more clear, and again, I do look at it, if the objective is to rule it out, it's our job to make it as clear as possible to improve its odds, that people know what they're voting for. Not necessarily that it passes or doesn't pass, but our job is to make sure that they understand what they're voting for or not voting for. So we can say commercial on against, for, or against. Other than that, were you happy with the wording, Chelsea?
Let me just hold check this real quick.
And if you want to borrow this, you're welcome to.
That'd be great.
You have to give it back to me since that's my copy.
So, I mean, I'm okay moving this forward the way that it is with just the commercial cultivator. And then, and doing more research on the manufacturing part of it, and if down the road.
My thinking here, just my feel is that the parts that you're talking about being a concern for commercial manufacturing
Mhm,
are probably addressed through other elements and don't have to be addressed here.
right. Well, I know,
And
I mean,
think the more convoluted,
I'd
less
love
likely
to,
it
I'd love to talk to, the fire department, because they have certain ways they have to handle, like, the propane,
Yep.
um,
Well, and again, they'd have to go through fire inspections, all of those types
Right.
of pieces.
no,
so-
but like, when an actual fire breaks out, they have they're trained to handle those type of situations, like a mock disaster where, the propane facility, has a fire,
Mhm.
and they actually had to deal with that when AY Supply,
Yep.
started on fire. It's just to make sure that if we do end up allowing something like that uses an explosive, gas to make something, does our fire department have the training? So, and it's not necessarily that it would be through something like this where we put it to the voters. It's just, we as a city, if we're gonna zone for it, we need to make sure that, we know what we're zoning for, and that our fire department will have the adequate training to be able to handle something like that.
Okay.
If something
I mean, I'm
horrible
fine.
happens,
And again, I totally agree with that. I just think that
Yeah.
in terms of what our discussions were, because I do remember back in the discussions that, people have labs in the back of dispensaries. Like, it can be very small scale. So again, I think just having a better understanding of what that could actually look like within our city limits.
Yeah.
And then we can also address that within zoning as well.
So when they have a lab, is it just to test the different grades of the marijuana, or are they actually
They
making
can
the
actually
tincture?
be making tinctures and that kind of thing. It's not a very difficult process.
Right.
And again, it's,
No, I've made tinctures with herbs and things like that.
Right.
But I don't use highly explosive.
yeah, and I feel like
So.
most people don't. So,
Yeah.
but again, we don't know that. So until we do,
Right.
I don't necessarily feel like we should disallow it. I think that more so we need to, when we do zoning, really address what the safety concerns are,
Mhm.
and then have that conversation with the fire department and see what their inspections and what the state inspections look like, and making sure that the fire department is comfortable with a facility of that nature within the city limits.
Okay.
And it
That
could
sounds
be that could absolutely be a part of that application process, or that
Right.
zoning process, the same with like STRs, where you have to have a fire inspection done and that has to be approved, the fire department could have to approve that facility and say, yeah, we're comfortable with potential hazards of this facility.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would, you know, when we're zoning for something and we're allowing something to go in a certain spot, we absolutely should know if what they're doing is, you know, a hazard.
Yeah, again, public health and safety first
Yeah,
and foremost.
definitely.
So, no, I agree with
And
that.
I guess that's really my only concern is from a public health and safety standard, is, you know,
Yep.
okay. Are we ready to
So-
move?
So tonight, what we'll do is we'll call out that we're gonna add the word commercial
Yes,
in front of that to the ballot language, but otherwise propose that we move that forward to turn in.
yes,
And I would probably leave off the possible manufacturing within city limits, because it's not really on that.
right.
Well, it's not in this at all.
No, not in this, no.
Yep.
That was, Jody recalled something other than the rest of it, so we wanted to include that on the
Okay.
agenda for
Yeah.
discussion.
But Chelsea remembered, so it wasn't just in my head.
No. There were the concerns, but again, I don't think it was actually something that we wanted to disallow. I think it was something that we just
Just
had the
more-
conversation on.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yep.
So, and that's fine, and I'm okay with that, moving it forward that way, okay? So, yeah, this is just discussion tonight, so Chelsea, if you and I can talk about that a little bit, I guess, and Dave,
Yeah.
I know you'll throw in your 2 cents, so,
How should I take that exactly?
whatever you want. No. Okay, a draft budget? Oh my gosh, this is new. Draft budget. You have a draft budget?
Mhm.
Budget. The goal is to get it out to folks as soon as possible so they can be looking at it.
Okay,
I can tell you that what's been done at this point, have not met with, Public Works, but we have met one-on-one, we being me and Lonnie. Lonnie's done a couple of cycles back and forth with department heads, and then her and I have met together with the department heads, as we go through. The current, so this does not have, Public Works, which is, most of that is not general. So this is general fund,
No, it's all there.
Oh.
Water, sewer,
okay.
so there's general fund, resort tax, water, sewer, solid waste. Those are all in there.
Okay, so the conversations that have taken place have been primarily those around general fund. You're gonna look at this on your phone, okay?
I was trying to, but
Um,
I don't think it's gonna work.
No.
it's very small, so we've gone through, it's worth pointing out, that there are some things in here that may change between now and then, AKA it's a draft and a working budget. So for instance, right now, we do have included in here, a school resource officer.
Okay,
I thought I would rather cut it if the funding doesn't come through than be adding it at the last minute, just so there's a public discussion on that. There was a little bit of, I will share, that there was a little bit of a discussion on whether we needed to, address, or, I lost my thought, sorry. There was a question that came up, about, do we address the school resource officer and fund that even in the absence of complete funding? And it very quickly turned into a conversation of, do I have philosophical conversations you don't have the money to have? So there's a philosophy to an extent that says, don't tell me what your priorities are, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what your priorities are. But at the same time, it's one of those conversations like, is it worth $1 million to save a baby's life? And the first question has to be, do you have $1 million? If you don't, then it's just an academic conversation. So I think as we've looked at it, I feel a certain amount of comfort. Part of the logic and discussion, I think, is a feel that, in talking with community leaders, and that the reality is, there are things that are probably more of a risk to more people than the stuff that makes, a fire, or, there's, so, but I think that the short version is, we've got it in the budget, we've got a grant application in to help pay for that. the school board had initially stated they were gonna help pay for that. I think it is appropriate for those who are interested in the community to reach out to the school board members and express an interest. But from a city standpoint, we don't have the ability to move forward with that without some sort of funding source. We can cover a portion of that, but, and we've agreed to that already in principle. But if they don't come through with theirs, there's a problem. The other thing that is not represented in this budget is, we do have, a letter being written by the attorney that basically says, yes, we can use resort tax dollars to help pay for our fire. We talked to the auditors and we've gotten it all cleared out. I just need a paper trail. That says that we have the ability, because it can be used for capital expenses related to public health and safety, and that is the majority of the thing. So basically, it'll say, we need a letter that's saying this is going to capital, and kind of outlining that. So that does help us a little bit in that, let me rephrase that. That changes the mix-up a little bit as we figure out how we allocate expenses. So for instance, if we take 100 or 150,000 from resort tax, that greatly relieves pressure on our general budget. It also means that 100 or 150,000 is not available to be spent on something else
Right.
under resort tax. I think we're making a move or working our way toward a position where there is not a presumed or assumed, payment from resort tax that automatically goes to water and sewer, which is a significant chunk of that. The net result of that is our water and sewer bills are, you could argue, are artificially low because we're using resort tax to help cover those payments.
I don't think our
that's,
citizens would,
pardon?
I said, I don't think our citizens would feel that way.
No, well, yeah, that doesn't mean they're happy having the utility bills
Like
raised
it.
either, right?
No.
I've
Like,
also, the talks do continue with the fire, what's the right word I'm looking for that entity?
Well, I mean, I
The
think
district,
our main concern for our admin and finance committee has always been setting what we're paying the fire department based on our mills.
right,
And to change that over so it's a dollar amount instead of a mill.
and my understanding is I have a proposal coming that I have not seen yet,
Okay,
that is basically a dollar amount that also builds in an incrementation basically tied to our increases. So if our property tax increases, there's an increase there. If our resort tax, so that it doesn't become a bigger piece of the pie. So we figure out what the piece of, it's 25% of our revenue. I'll just use that as a round number. It's 25% of our revenue, whether it's up, down, or sideways. In other words, it's not tied to the mill calculation, and it's funding anything. There is still a not agreement of the minds, as to whether the city should be paying a different amount than other entities. In my mind, if we were all part of the district, then we would be paying the same amount. And as we talked about why that is and why it's okay, there are additional services that the fire district does provide to the city that it doesn't provide other places. For instance, fire inspections. So the discussion included, do we have a fee for those things so that we're on an equal plane? The other thing is that there are requirements that the city has in order to maintain our ISO rating that don't exist but for the city. I don't think those are justifiably a version factor. I don't think you charge this community one and this community another. I think that's part of that level of scale. Does that make sense, or do?
I'm sorry,
So- So if I sit down and talk to the fire district, they say, we have to have 2 big trucks to help Red Lodge maintain its safety rating.
yes,
We don't have to have those to provide that service for Joliet or other places, or, for places within the county. We only have to have those to help Red Lodge keep its rate down.
I mean,
No,
to a
they-
degree, that makes sense to me, because in a lot of those other districts or those other communities, they also have volunteer fire departments that could be offsetting. Where we don't, I mean, yes, we do, but we pay for them. Does that make sense?
No, because our fire department is hugely volunteer. We have.
Oh, no, agreed, but I'm
And it's
saying
the
they
same as-
also have fire departments, where we have one.
They have the same though, Joliet and Roberts, they're all the same.
And that, it wasn't appropriate to include those because I was making the common mistake of comparing the EMS, which is now wider, and the fire.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So if you wanna keep your ISO rating, which ours is a 4, you have to meet certain requirements, your fire extinguisher, you know, you have to have so much flow, you have to be able to get so much water.
and you have
to
to.
a
do it
fire
within
at a
5
certain
miles
amount.
of the-
Yeah, to an amount, you have to, and you have to have so many, you know, like you said, so many big trucks. If we start, building higher, allowing higher structures, then you're also gonna have to keep that rating, you're also gonna have to bring in, they're gonna have to buy a ladder truck,
Yeah.
kind of things like that. So there's all these different requirements for different ISO ratings.
And there's a certain argument that says, if you don't do all of that, you're just gonna pay for it differently because your insurance rates will go all up. So there's a benefit to paying it up.
Up to a certain point.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of, just an FYI, a lot of insurance companies are no longer using the ISO ratings.
Hmm.
They're doing more of a fire risk area, and which is why Red Lodge's fire insurance rates have been going up, because we are close to a
Trees.
trees. And so, it doesn't matter really that we have a protection class 4 here, because if the whole town goes, the fire department can't really do anything about it.
And in fairness, that's an important element of
Yeah,
fire departments, that municipalities don't have fire departments so that a house won't burn down.
right,
They have fire departments so the town doesn't burn down.
right.
You know, the Chicago thing, is the benefit of that that's being, yes, to respond very, very quickly, but if
And
you have
get as much
multiple
water as
house
you
fires-
can there.
Yeah, if we have multiple fires, they will do what they can, but the real reason, the history and why they come there is to keep everything from burning down. It's much easier to take care of it when it's small than
Right.
letting it get big.
Yeah, no, I've learned a lot getting back into insurance after 5 years. Like State Farm does not use ISO. If you're within 10 miles, it's all the same rate.
Yeah.
If you're within 10 miles to the fire department. And a lot of other carriers are now doing that same thing,
Yep.
so.
Is the ISO what sets the 5 mile limit? Because in my mind, I remember it's 5.
Well, no, a lot of times what they do, it's how different carriers, they'll give them that fire protection class if they're within 5 miles of the fire department. Other ones, you have to be within 5 miles and within the city limits. So they're not going to extend that fire protection, you know, out to, you know, Palisade Basin Ranches type of, you know, it absolutely depends on the carrier and how they want to rate for it.
So bringing it back to this discussion in
Yeah.
fire, so, we've got a letter coming that is going to allow us to use resort tax dollars to help pay for the capital portion of our fire obligation. There is a conversation going on about how we address the rate. My goal is to get us as close to the same rate as everybody else. There may be a discussion there, and basically to get us away from the mills issue. So that conversation is still ongoing.
And I guess I really would like,
Our deadline is December, so.
I understand wanting, you know, kind of an inflationary guard increase type of thing, but I'm just really hesitant to say, yes, if our property taxes go up, the fire department gets that same percentage increase, you know, I just.
Well, it's not our property taxes, our city take, because realize. our
No,
property taxes are going up.
I get that, so
Okay.
I'm just saying,
Our
but you
application.
said you were tying it to, or if our resort taxes go up, they get a certain percentage of that increase. I'm like, I just don't think we just, because sometimes that could be just big flush thing of extra money for them, and I'm kind of hesitant to just, you know, say, yeah, that's great.
Well,
Because,
and that was kind of the idea behind the mills, except for the mills aren't a consistent percentage. of the
right, yeah,
compensation.
exactly. So I guess I think that this should be set, you know, by a contract, obviously, but I don't think it should just be an automatic, oh, we've got extra money, so we're just gonna give it to you. I think that, it should be set for, you
Yeah,
know,
there should be
two-
a set rate, that's,
Yeah, a
Yeah.
set rate, a set increase, and if that, and you do a 2 or 3 year contract, and at the end of that 3 years, if their expenses have gone way up, then we have another conversation.
that's my
Well, I
I-
said, when I get that proposal, I'll bring it to council,
Okay,
do it, but that proposal is still ongoing, and I don't think we yet have one that everybody agrees to.
yeah, and I absolutely support the fire department, everything that they do. I mean, I'm not saying I don't, but speaking from being on the admin committee, finance committee for the city, I want us to try and I know you will, so I'll just shut up now.
No, I appreciate the input, the idea, because
So, we're gonna run out of time, but last year what we did, and it worked really well, was we did go through we
Yep.
had a meeting and we just went through this budget basically line by line,
Yep.
so that the admin and finance understood exactly what was being done.
Mhm.
And I would like to do that again.
I agree.
Because there are some things in here just glancing through that I, have no idea what they're for.
Right.
And
No,
so,
yeah, last year,
Is that this body only, or is that
it was this
we
body-
did it this body only, and then address those at council meetings, to where
Yeah.
these are some of our concerns. Everyone has obviously presented the budget and had the same opportunity, but it gave us an opportunity to have a conversation with Lonnie and the folks in the room.
Yes,
Where is this money? Why did this double last year? Why does he need an extra chair? Like, all of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And because we have recorded open meetings with minutes, we absolutely can let everyone on council know that we will be discussing this budget line by line. You're welcome to attend if you want more clarification on this budget before you vote on it, so that they have that opportunity as well.
I am going to ask a question or raise a potential issue.
Okay.
As I look at who's here, and as I look at an empty chair, and as I look at what's there's a very real possibility that in order to have this full body, standing committee body, this meeting may need to occur after hours, which is gonna have an impact on staff. If we need to have one, so if we do not have the ability to have this meeting during regular business hours,
Okay,
that's gonna impact staff. What are your thoughts on how to address that?
Last year we and it was during an admin committee. I
yeah,
think you guys scheduled like a 2-hour admin committee.
Yeah, but it happened during staff hours, that's his concern. Is that if
So
we
my-
had to
my
do this at
concern
like
is
six
if-
PM or something.
There's a possibility
or five
that
or
that
seven.
this committee may have two people that cannot be withdrawn from their business at the same time, which means that may not be an option.
Well, and we also have Cinta who teaches, she can't make this meeting.
She's out of school now.
She's got summer hours, and that'll come up tonight, they're
Yeah,
gonna
okay.
face there.
Very excited.
But my point is,
Right.
there's just a logistics thing that we
Absolutely.
may have to figure out
Can-
there, and we should take into account the
Well,
impact.
could
of
we
staff.
do it, as a works, and I know Public Works would have to change their meeting, but could we do it from 5 until 6 of our, on a council night? We could have a couple of them,
Yeah.
I mean,
Again, I think that we address that when we actually have people in the room.
Okay.
And we actually have that issue at the table.
Well, but I like the fact that we're taking, I guess my ask is just let's take into account the impact of staff.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we're doing it on staff nights, when staff is already gonna be in here,
Right.
that can.
Yeah, and I mean, we could do a special, 5 to 6 meeting before council for the next next 2 council meetings,
Mhm.
where we just, discuss where we go line by line through our budget.
Yeah.
And if people wanna show up early to that, they sure can.
Okay, next question.
Yes.
Department presentations, we still wanna have
Yes.
them do that?
I was actually about to ask if we were gonna get that again, because I really appreciated that. And I
Yeah.
think it provided some really nice insight, just to know where the money was going, because before those meetings, before those presentations, I would have been a lot more pushy on the budget. But it was nice to actually see what the impacts are.
Yes.
So as we're looking at that list, obviously, Public Works,
Well, and, that's a lot of also the resort tax as well. And then, there's building and planning, planning board and building, not planning board,
Okay.
but planner and building.
Here's a
code.
question.
And then general fund.
Do we want the fire district to come and make a presentation about what they're doing with their money, or is that a contractor and we just write them a check and let them do their thing?
And we also
The
have,
only thing with it being capital, they have to prove it's capital. We can't just say, okay, resort tax,
No, and that's
Fire
part of
department,
what the attorney is putting together, is
you
that
already
not
sent
paper?
a letter.
Okay, do we have it?
You should have it.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that, I'm just not betting my life on it right now.
No, he just sent it, because I remember seeing it. But yeah, I mean, the fire department does have to
But,
present what that money, if it is gonna come.
but
out
that
of
doesn't mean they
resort
have to present it to council, we
No.
just have to have a paper trail.
Paper.
My question is it appropriate? I can't direct them to, I could request them to, do we want to have them do a presentation to council at all?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay?
Again, at this point, like, we have a contract with them, we have a commitment to them. It's not like them coming in and talking to us is gonna change how we draft things out. Maybe if they wanna present on their capital, things that are coming out of the resort tax budget, but specifically the other pieces,
well, and it's also kind of comes down to the library too, because I know they're part of our budget, but, you know,
I
that,
was gonna ask that
our whole
question next.
thing
Do you
is
wanna have
not-
the library present or no?
I just, you know, we don't have a lot of control over, we have like no control over how they spend it, yes.
I guess from the taxpayer standpoint, the presentations that I saw last year helped me to understand and support the budget.
Yep, agreed.
And
Yeah.
even if you're not present in the room when it's given, you can still watch it online.
Okay.
It's still in
Yeah.
the packet.
It helps everybody
Okay,
if that information is available and say, where's all this money going?
Yeah.
yeah,
And here's a presentation. And because I watch a lot of the stuff, I watch council meetings after it happens online, because I spend all day here anyway.
yeah, exactly.
It just, to me, it makes sense that those presentations be given and updated yearly, just because it helps the taxpayer understand, where's all my money going? What's my money paying for?
Okay. I'll get-
Yeah,
I'll
no,
get a-
I'm good with that.
I'll
I
get
like
a
that
council-
perspective.
A schedule mapped out, and we'll start getting those on the agenda.
Yeah, and I do agree, it does make it easier for council to say yes to a budget that they understand and they know how it's being spent.
Well, again, like, I specifically the library one last year, I think was very beneficial, because we pay a very large sum to the library, and I had a lot of personal pushback against it until I actually heard of a lot of the services that were being provided. So,
Yeah.
I felt like it is well utilized for the most part.
One of the conversations that happened there, and just to kind of, to keep you enlightened, so there are some things that I definitely want to work away from. I do not want to create an environment, as you go and look at library here, for instance, I don't want to create an environment of spend it or lose it.
Mhm.
And so there was $20,000 that was set aside for capital projects that they were thinking of. It was basically the co-pay is the word that's coming to mind, but that's not match.
Yeah, I hear
That
you
was
saying.
there that they didn't spend, and so I don't have a problem with putting that forward. At the same time, there was a decision last year that was made about, there was a decision last year that was made about adding an additional staff person and giving them, taking them from a part-time to a full-time, which had making implications, because you are now paying benefits and stuff. So we held them to that too and said, yes, keep in mind, we're in this spot because of what was there, so where are we cutting to adjust for that?
Yep.
There is also, by way of information, just kind of summarize that, there is an ongoing conversation about how to address the dog from the police force issues.
Okay.
So I don't think that one's done yet either, but just so that, because that was initially sold to the public as this will not be local tax dollars that go to that.
Right, it was all donation-based and all drug forfeiture.
So there is a problem realigning the expectations that have been set with the realities of, you know, ongoing things like this training and so there's still some open discussions there that we're working.
Well, and you don't want, yeah, I mean, that just will kind of leave a bad taste in people's mouth when it was sold that way, and it's like you went ahead and got the dog, and now you need money.
Yeah.
It's like, and did you know you were gonna need money when this was happening, you know, or, you know, and,
And in my mind, yes, you did, right? That was,
Yeah,
and if you
exactly,
didn't, you
and-
could have,
yeah.
to know that there's ongoing things.
Because
So,
there was no thing from council approving that expenditure that way because it was a donation. And so now they're gonna have to come to us
And from that regard, I think, like I said, that just works the way in the budget. If they end up putting it into their budget, it's, they're, you know, okay, where's it gonna come out of, or where's it gonna?
yeah, and I'm okay having that conversation. It's just kind of, like I say, did you know this when you got it? Was it like ask for forgiveness later type of situation, or did it just not work out the way you thought it was going to work out? So,
Are there expenses that we should not have foreseen?
right.
And explain why we didn't foresee those, because it
Exactly.
seems like we should have foreseen those, so.
And then, you know, maybe when the police department does their, presentation, they can talk about, you know, the value of having the dog too, so that we understand more what that role is.
And there is very much, he says, I
Yeah.
think he's very comfortable speaking to why this dog situation is more valuable and different from the dogs, but to me, those are not independent in a vacuum conversations. What you said was, and then they're still there, so. All right, anyway,
Okay.
to your point, we're at time of budget-wise, where are we? And
Well, I would love to.
did I answer your questions?
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea, what do you think? Should we ask Public Works, which I am on, to reschedule their next meeting?
I
Because
think,
Cynthia won't, I mean, she doesn't have to have a 4:30 meeting for that.
Right.
I can,
I think that would be worth having the conversation, just floating it out there,
okay,
depending on how the evening goes and what schedules are looking like, and then we can have a discussion after the council meeting this evening.
yeah, and I just,
So at the admin, one of the things tied to the draft budget is how do we do the line by line?
well,
When?
it would,
When do we do the line by line?
It would
We are
be in
doing-
an admin meeting.
Yeah.
But we could change our admin meeting
Yep.
to an evening meeting, so, before council, so that we can go through the, you know, we can do.
Mhm.
The summer hours for the meeting that's on Monday, they're looking to having it 10 o'clock on Tuesdays now, so that during the summer, they're all on
Yep.
Tuesdays again. So take that into account also.
Okay.
And again, my only request is we have to figure out what the potential impacts are to staff.
Yep.
Right, I mean, it was a 2-hour meeting, and we needed the 2 hours, but I would say that it would be more, okay, tonight we're gonna go line by line through the general fund. Next time, we're gonna go line by line through, you know, because the general fund's probably the biggest one, and the resort tax.
And again, I think the way that we did it last time was very beneficial in the fact that we reviewed it ahead of time.
Yeah.
We made our personal notes before the meeting, was prepared for the meeting. So then as we went through, it was literally just addressing things as needed, as we had questions. We didn't literally ask a question on every single line, but we highlighted where we thought that there was just, we needed clarification. It went very smooth. I think we were able to do that in one meeting.
Yes,
And then for me, so you guys are gonna address that, and then what I need to do is flesh out a calendar for this year, which will include those department presentations.
Yep.
And kind of let the public all know when those calendars are.
And just for agenda notification, T-Bid has the request to be on the following, the upcoming council meeting, not tonight, but,
Is that admin?
I mean, yes, I suppose, but, I mean, we want it at the actual council meeting.
What, just like a
Just-
presentation?
We have to do a presentation and approval of our budget every year, and that's what we're looking for, is to have the presentation at the next meeting, so we can vote to approve the budget by the following meeting.
Okay. So for next week, Lonnie or you, Kevin, if you have this down on? next week's T-bid presentation, or next meeting.
Well, and when we had this line-by-line meeting in admin and finance, not everybody came.
Yeah, no, it
Anyway,
was
so I
just you,
don't-
me, and Chris, like,
I'm like, I don't know,
Okay, yeah, I'm just,
I mean,
we just need to essentially have Lonnie here for answering questions, and I think we had some follow-up answers for the following meeting. But,
so I guess, you know, and
right, am I remembering that? Okay.
so,
Cool.
I mean, if we wanna have like a special meeting just to go over the budget with full council, I'm okay with that too, but we didn't do that last year.
No, and I don't think that's the plan, I don't think that's the intention.
So, yeah, so kind of,
like I said, we have the goal of we want to do it transparently and for the public, so thank you very much for your comments. We take those suggestions, and to your point, even if people can go through and just watch it and listen to it, then they're party to the conversations they have.
Yeah.
The things I will add, that there were specific things that we went through, training was something we hit universally across the board to make sure everybody had appropriate training in. Can you think of any other thing that was kind of universal across all the departments?
Yeah, I think training was the main universal across the board.
And we did budget for the maybe, so if we don't use something, I mean, the goal is ultimately we'll come in spending less than what we budgeted rather than over.
That's usually the goal of the budget.
yeah.
I'd like to see our cash on hand go up.
And then the other thing we had, for next time, was when will the resort tax committee, will they come and discuss, typically they give a presentation on the budget, the resort tax budget, and then also the ordinance itself, the changes to the ordinance. We'll need to make sure we have that on, coming up as well.
Okay.
So,
So we'll want to make sure we get that added onto the agenda this time.
yes.
And for all committee chairs, it was determined that it might be a good idea to review the notes prior to the Thursday rather than
Yes,
Monday.
and writing the minutes up after, since
Okay,
That was
thank you. Anything else, Madam Chair?
I don't think so. Anything else, guys?
One request for this evening, can I keep that chair up there for tonight?
I don't know if it'll fit, we can try to fit it behind the table.
Oh,
If I need to sit-
Can you keep which chair? I'm
The
sorry.
comfy ass chair, 'cause those
middle
chairs
one?
will kill me.
So your request is, can you sit in that one?
Yeah,
We'll make it happen.
thank you. 'Cause, yeah, I am already hoping that I just die today.
All right, anything else? If standing is more convenient too, please feel
Okay.
free to alternate between standing and sitting.
I might even take Doug's corner, just so,
And if it won't fit, I'll find another chair that might be
be a little bit, if nothing else, I think I have I'll bring a pillow.
we have pillow chairs.
I'm hoping that they just
Did you say the magic words?
Yes, we're adjourned.
adjourn.